Hello, in this video, we're going to talk about how to align yourself with the dream business that you want to create. So you might be feeling a little stuck right now. Perhaps you're feeling like you're working in a job that's not really fulfilling or satisfying. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with working in a job for somebody else or a corporate gig if that's what you want to do. But you might be feeling like maybe your path is different. Like maybe you should be creating your own business. Maybe you've got an idea, something that's grabbing onto you, and you want to know if it's possible, if you should do that. Is it the responsible thing to do? If that's the right thing to do. So this video, I'm going to provide a framework for creating a dream business from scratch, your dream business. And I'm just going to talk about how you need to think about aligning yourself if you want to go on that journey. And I'm going to talk more about how you become really committed and aligned to this thing that you're doing, which is really what it takes. So firstly, I just want to give you a little bit of background that I was in that position several years ago. About 20 years ago, I was working at a number of corporate jobs over my early stage of my career. So companies like Procter & Gamble, AT&T Wireless, Experian, Amazon. Those four companies are really my big company experience. And I felt the call to create a business when I was working at YesMail, and we'd sold that business to a company called InfoUSA. And there was more I wanted to do in the email space. And so I had this kind of gumption to get together and ended up creating a business in my house for $5,000. And that really started my startup career. So I successfully made the transition from corporate manager, corporate executive to entrepreneur. And really, as soon as I did it, I saw that it was the right thing for me. Even though there weren't challenges, there were bigger challenges than I've ever faced in my career building my own startup as opposed to challenges that I face working for companies. But it was just it really felt alignment with me. And I was wondering if I had what it takes, to create a profitable business from scratch. And it turns out I've done okay with that. So I've created 7 startups before at most recent count. Of those, 5 were profitable and 3 exited. So I want to firstly just thank you for clicking on this video. There's something inside of you that caused you to do it, and I have a feeling it is the call of your inner voice or the call of your heart. And I want to thank you for taking the action to listen to that, listen to your heart, and at least investigate what it would look like to follow your heart or to act on your bliss. So one thing I wanted to make clear in this video is that building a business from scratch is a creative process. And it basically takes everything that you have to give in order to pull it off. So I'm not saying it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it takes more of everything that you have when compared to a corporate job, for example. And so the key to really finding success in building your dream business is to create this alignment internally with this thing that you want. And so I'm talking about alignment with your physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and psychological self. And if you can't create this kind of alignment, it's going to be difficult for you to be a creator and to create the business that you want. Now, I'm not trying to scare you off. This is not a hippy-dippy video. We're going to talk about just the practical kind of framework for how to think about this. So without further ado, let's go through these 3 aspects of ourselves and talk about how we can create alignment within each part of ourselves and between the different aspects so that we can create a business of our dreams. So the first is to align your heart. Okay? Your heart is part of you, and I'm just going to call it kind of the emotional center. And this is a lot of times where the inspiration for starting a business or a new idea comes from. So follow your bliss. You've heard this expression before. And when we say follow your bliss, this is really what we mean. The bliss is the feeling that you have in your heart where you're feeling excitement, you're feeling imagination, the power of this idea that you have, you're like, oh man, I've got this great idea. And what if we did this? And what if that did that? You start to imagine this world, this reality that exists where you have created a successful business and you get excited about it. This is what it means to follow your bliss. The impetus for following your bliss comes from experiencing something that you don't want. And so this is just human nature. For example, if somebody is rude to you, you wish that they were nicer. If you are having trouble financially, you wish you had more money. If you don't have a lot of friends, you wish you had more friends. It goes on and on and on. The experiencing the contrast of the difference between what you want and what you don't want really helps clarify our desire. It helps focus our desire. And the more intensely we notice this contrast, the more powerful the desire becomes. So, as I said earlier, you're working in a job that you hate. Are you frustrated? Do you feel like you're in the wrong place? Are you getting up every day, go to work to crank the wheel and do that job because you feel like you have to, but it's really not what you want to do? Would you rather be doing something else? Would you rather be spending your time somewhere else? And as we all know, time is precious. So why would you spend time doing something that you hate? Typically, the reason for that is your mind is like talking you out of it. You have split energy. It's like, I want this thing, but I want to create my dream business, but I have a mortgage. I have a family. I have to pay for college, retirement, whatever. So you really have split energy. I want this thing, but I want this thing, but. And this is exhausting. This is, you're basically pushing against yourself. It's almost like going up to a brick wall and trying to move the brick wall with your hand. You can't move it. And it doesn't matter how hard you push, all you're doing is really tiring yourself out. And that's what a lot of us are doing. So I'm not suggesting the solution here is to immediately quit your job. That may be a financial disaster for you. But what I am suggesting is that if you have that calling from your inner voice or within your heart for something that you feel like you should be doing, I would encourage you to at least investigate it. Be curious about it. Spend some time working on it, thinking about it, developing it. Not in a way that you're going to immediately quit your job, but do it on nights and weekends. Do it with other folks that are doing kind of side hustles as well. I think you owe it to your heart to at least investigate and be curious and to take a look. So I think that's the first step, is aligning with your heart. And if you don't align with your heart, if you continue to listen to these kind of negative thoughts about I want this but, if you listen to the buts, you may end up, many, many years later regretting that you would have taken a chance and pursued this dream. Okay, that's the heart. So the second piece you have to really align with is your head. And we've already alluded to this in terms of the logical voice inside of your head that sometimes is talking you out of it. So even if you align with your heart and you're not aligned with your head, you're not going to be able to manifest it because you're basically going to be in your own way, talking yourself out of it. So in my experience, the best way to align your head is to follow a logical, scientific method or process for testing your business idea by running experiments in the real world with customers so that you can generate the evidence that you need to convince your physical mind that this is a good idea and that this business can work. Okay? That's the only way to really satisfy your head, in my opinion. And when you go through a process like that, what you're doing is basically transforming your mindset from a place of thinking to a place of knowing. So when I initially have a business idea, I get curious about it and I start thinking, hey, what if we did this? This would be a great idea. And so I don't know for sure that this is going to work. I think it might work, but I don't know for sure. And so by getting more evidence around the details of your business model, understanding your customers, the problem that you're solving, the product, the way you're going to grow your business. Once you have a better understanding of that, you can move into from thinking into knowing. So you got to get to a point where it's no longer, I think this is a good idea. I know it's a good idea. And how do I know it? Not because I've deluded myself. I know it because I've got the evidence that shows that it's going to work. Okay? Does that make sense? So there are some other resources that don't have anything to do with us. If you're interested, I'm happy to point you in that direction. So I would research lean startup frameworks. I would research design thinking, customer development process, and one of my favorite teachers on the subject, Steve Blank, who I think is somewhat of a godfather of or grandfather, whatever term is, of lean startup. So look at those resources. But we, of course, have our own process for this. It's called insight-driven iteration. This is the process we teach at the Founder Dojo Basic Training course. And essentially what it is a multi-phase process where we go through and run experiments with customers to validate the problem that we think they have and to know that this problem is real, that it's really hurting people and they would love to solve it and they're willing to pay some money to solve it. And the second phase is the solution phase, and the third phase is finding scalable path to customers. So we have this validation wheel that we've developed to kind of illustrate the process where customers in the center, the red pies are problem validation, the blue are solution, and the green are path to customers. So when we run this process, we get more and more evidence. Now, these experiments don't always work as we had planned. We never know what the results are going to be until we run the experiment. That's why it's an experiment. But if the experiment works the way we'd hoped, great. We have more validation, we have more confidence, we start moving from thinking to knowing. If the experiment doesn't go the way that we want, well, that's good too, because we learned something and we avoided making a mistake and are able to tweak and pivot and change our business model so that it will have a higher probability of success. So there's really no failure in this process. Whether it goes well or whether it does not go well, you learn something valuable and can move from thinking to knowing. Okay, so that's the alignment with your head. The third piece is aligning your hand. And what I mean by that is skills. Okay, so these are actions and skills that you can take. And so when I say hand, I'm thinking like a craftsman who maybe is a blacksmith or a shoe cobbler, certain skills that you can bring to the business that will help bring it into reality. So think of it as like a role-playing game. I've got a graphic here of Diablo 4, which is going to launch in 3 days. And in a role-playing game, if you're familiar with gaming, you pick a class of different skill sets. So here we've got a barbarian, a necromancer, a sorcerer, and a rogue, kind of archer, spy character class, and then a druid class. And so these are the particular classes of this RPG. And if you're familiar with RPG, as you go through your journey, you add more skills, you accumulate more experience points, and that allows you to develop more skills of various types. So in order for you to become an effective entrepreneur and one who can create an amazing business from scratch, you have to develop your skills. So one way to think about it, if you're engaging in a technology startup or in a software startup, there are typically 4 roles that you want to think about, or 4 skill trees, if you will. The first is product visionary. Someone who's a product visionary has the ability to extract insight from customers. So they have certain skills around an ability to talk to customers, to interview them, to ask the right questions, and get the insight they need in terms of what problems and unmet needs these customers have. And then importantly, take that insight and transform it into a product idea or a feature idea that's going to elegantly solve this problem and deliver it in a way that customers love using it. So there's a lot in the product visionary role right from the jump, but you need someone on your team to do that. And if you're a solo founder doing it for yourself, you've got to develop this capability. The second skill tree is around designer. So this is someone typically with a graphics design background, experience in user experience, UI, UX design. And their strength and their ability is to design a customer experience that solves the problem in an easy and delightful way. And this is critical as an element of the skill tree. The third element is what we call hacker. So this is someone who knows how to build products. So if we're talking about software, this is typically a software engineer or someone who has an ability to know how to build something and then can actually build it and get it into production in a way that users and customers can use it and benefit from it. And then the last type of role is a marketing or business development role. And this is someone with the ability to develop and find scalable paths to customers. In other words, scalable ways to get customers into the business and an ability to sell the product. So If it's a B2B situation, it might be a direct sales skill that you need, or if it's a small business or a consumer application, it might be an online marketing or digital marketing skill set. So those are the four types of players that you need to have. And you got to ask yourself as an entrepreneur, where do you want to develop skills? Now, for me personally, I started really as a product visionary. With my startups, I usually am the one that has the inspiration for the idea. And so I like to build the team in this order as it's listed on this chart. So the first role is usually myself, being the product visionary, figuring out what problem are we solving, who are we solving it for, what's the MVP look like, really focusing on that skill set and figuring out what to build. And then my second skill set is really marketing and biz dev. And the reason for that is my mantra has always been, if I can build a product and then sell the product, I'm unstoppable. Now, of course, I have a dependency because I used to do more programming myself, but I got so into the product stuff, I decided not to keep up with all the programming. It just didn't seem like the best fit for me and the best use for my time. So I have somewhat of a dependency in my startup building process where I need to find engineers that can code up my ideas. And then designers as well. So it's difficult to, kind of be a jack of all trades. I do have some design skills, but I'm really not the best in that. And so you got to pick and choose like where you want to put your experience points. And even after, 20 plus years of building startups, there's really no way I could have become, best in class in all these areas. So I just nobody has enough experience points to do that. So for me, it was product and marketing, biz dev. For you, it might be something else. And then you have to find team members or co-founders or contractors or somebody to help fill out that team. Okay, so in summary, this is all you got to do to create your dream business. You align your heart and your head and your hand, and if you can do this, you can create your dream business. So hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Hey, if you found this video to be helpful, I encourage you to check out the Founder Dojo Basic Training Course and Community. Go to founderdojo.com, look for basic training, and check it out. I've taken everything I've learned over the past 25 years of building successful startups, and I put it into this course. You can learn how to discover unsolved problems, validate those problems with customers, how to build products and solutions that customers are going to love, and how to build a sustainable, scalable, profitable business model. It's everything you need to know about building a startup all in one concise course. And I think it's a must-have for anybody who's thinking of creating a startup business. In addition to the course, we also have a community where we gather regularly over group Zoom calls and do live Q&A and try to support each other in our journey to build successful businesses together. So if you're interested and you're thinking about it, head over to founderdojo.com and check it out.